Hello, 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 and welcome to Crown Lane on the Record. We are up to episode 16, and today we've got a very special guest with us. Very, very delighted to have with us one and only GORDY Marshall.
Thank you very much, Lawrence. It's very nice of you to ask me to come and chat to you.
How are you today,
I'm
GORDY?
Very well indeed. Yeah.
I'm very glad the mics weren't rolling for the last 5 minutes.
Yeah, we're just trying to keep a straight face now.
We've
got all the swearing out the way and all the jokes out the way.
Don't say that. Yes, well, no, welcome. Really, really lovely to have you. I mean, from a personal standpoint, it's great to have you here on this side of the studio anyway, because you're a studio user of ours, and that's how, you know, definitely I got to know you and got to become friends with you. Absolutely, we love it when you're here.
Great.
But for
even
anyone,
though I play the drums.
Even though you play the drums next to the office. Yeah. No, it's beautiful. But for those who might not know who you are, who might be listening, who is GORDY Marshall?
Yes.
Can you give us like a brief overview, like a CV, basically?
Yes, of course. Well, you've mentioned my name. I'm a musician, primarily a drummer. Played with a band called the Moody Blues for over 25 years. And for anybody that doesn't know the Moody Blues, a very quick description of them would go something like this. They formed in the 1960s. They were signed to Decca Records. They were famously signed by Decca after Decca turned down the Beatles, because they thought guitar bands were over. Then the Beatles went on to be huge, and then when the Moody Blues came along to Decca, they snapped them up. Mm. So the Moody Blues actually supported the Beatles on their very final tour. And the initial incarnation of the Moody Blues included a singer called Denny Laine, who became very friendly with Paul McCartney on that tour, and they joined together and started the band Wings, which meant that the Beatles split up and the Moody Blues were left without a vocalist, without a lead vocalist. Mm. So that's when a super talented individual called Justin Hayward and another super talented individual, bass player called John Lodge, joined the Moody Blues, and that was the second incarnation of the Moody Blues. They went on to become one of the top grossing rock acts in America. Well, they toured all over the world, but primarily in America. And they became one of the top grossing rock touring acts for decades in America. Sold over 70 million albums. They were the very first band to ever record with an orchestra. In 1967, they were asked by Decca to be involved in this experimental album, which was going to be a demo album to demonstrate this brand new technology back in the day called stereo.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
2 speakers.
Yeah.
You've got about 6, isn't there?
I know, yeah.
So that album was called Days of Future Past. Originally, what the album was going to consist of was going to be a rock band on one side of the stereo field and an orchestra on the other. But when they came to record the album, it was put together and it became this album called Days of Future Past, which had 2 massive hits on it. One was called Tuesday Afternoon, and the other one is called Nights in White Satin, which is the Moody Blues' most famous song, of course. So then they went on to record a whole series of, again, massive albums. They just sold, their music was ubiquitous in America, all over the place. So when I joined them in 1990, they'd already been going for 25 years. And it was quite a shock for me, because I was effectively a London session musician. I was playing in clubs and pubs and bar mitzvahs and all sorts of places, weddings. And then I got this gig with the Moody Blues just through a cattle call audition. Was flown out to the States, and the first gig I did was 20,000 people.
Wow.
And I nearly fell off I literally was shaking.
Whereabouts was it?
It was in Allentown, Pennsylvania.
Right, okay.
So then I went on to tour, and I've played everywhere from the Hollywood Bowl to the O2. We did multiple nights at the Royal Albert Hall. We played every single massive arena in America. And I toured with them 4 to 6 times a year for 25 years until they stopped touring in the sort of 2010s, 2015, 2017.
Yeah. Wow. And then post Moody?
After that, well, then I actually left the Moodies because I was a backing musician effectively for them for that time, although I was in the band for that long. So then I left the Moodies in 2015 because I was already working in the West End, and they were sort of doing about 2 or 3 weeks a year, and it wasn't enough work. So I didn't want to be. It's a bit like a 0 hours contract, really, because you have to be available. Like being a musician is. It's where the term the gig economy comes from. Yeah. So I left them in 2015, and I put my own band together. put a series of bands together. I put an Eagles tribute band together, a Carpenters tribute band together, but I also put, as daft as it sounds, a Moody Blues tribute band together.
Did you really?
We did, yes.
What was it called?
It's called Go Now, which is the name of the very first #1 hit. So Go Now is the record that became #1 when the Moody Blues were touring with the Beatles back in 1965. So a little bit like the show We Will Rock You is named after the title of the Queen musical, or Thriller is the name of a Michael Jackson show. We called our band, which is a tribute to the music of the Moody Blues, we called that Go Now.
Yeah.
So we started performing in provincial theatres, and eventually, because the Moody Blues were so big in America, and because I was known from the Moody Blues, we've ended up touring back in America.
Wow.
So we had that little bit in the middle of the pandemic that sort of turned things upside down. But apart from that, no, we're back out. We did 5 trips to the States last year, and we played with a bunch of orchestras. We did the last trip out. We did 3 nights with the Dallas Symphony Orchestra,
amazing,
which is great. So I'm back playing some of the places I used to play with the Moody Blues, which is fantastic.
It's kind of gone full circle.
It really has, actually. Yeah.
And then post that, well, not post that, but alongside that, we also know you at the studio for being a West End drummer as well, which is quite funny because when we have young people coming into the studio, I know you've been caught in the trap of John, our owner at the studio, who's, we've had up to 15 young people from a secondary school come along for a workshop. It happened quite recently. When you're here at the same time, and unwillingly, John has come in and said, "Everyone, this is Gordy Marshall." And you've ended up presenting at one of our workshops and been a part of it. And first of all, this is the first time I've been able to apologise to you for that happening. But second of all, just thank you so much, because you're just so good, and you run in and you chat with the kids, and you do the 5-minute, lecture basically to these young people, and they're all listening to you. It's amazing. But it's funny that, for young people, most of them won't know who the Moody Blues are. Most of them won't know any music beyond, before the year 2000. Yeah. But the moment that we say, "Oh, he's the drummer in Wicked or Hamilton," they're starstruck. So, how did that kind of come? We're going to talk about this more in a little bit, but just with your CV, that this is a part of what you do as a drummer as well now. Yeah.
Well, the Moody Blues the Moody Blues were the main part of my career. But in addition to that, I've done a lot of other work as well. So I've toured with Jeff Wayne's The War of the Worlds.
Well, really?
Yeah,
amazing.
That was great. That was fantastic, actually. That was a great experience. And the reason I got that is because Justin Hayward was on the original record, was on the original War of the Worlds record, and had the hit Forever Autumn.
Yeah.
So he was asked by Jeff, when I was in the Moody Blues, Jeff approached Justin and said, "We're going to put the War of the Worlds back out on tour, and we're going to do the O2 and Royal Albert Hall, and we're going to tour all over the place. Would you like to come back and tour and reprieve your original part? And do you know a drummer?" And it just so happened that Justin put my name forward, and then I just got booked for the gig. For me, that was a dream gig, because that was it was released in 1977 when I was 17. Yeah. And I actually gave the parts to Jeff when I met him, but I meticulously transcribed the drum parts when I was 17 of the entire album. And I used to play it on cardboard boxes. Honestly, I know every word of that album. So when I was asked to do that with Justin, that really was a dream come true. That was great. So, but then I got a gig. I was asked to dep on a show called Fame, the musical.
Yeah, I remember.
And then the drummer left, and then they asked me to take over. And that ran for 6 years in the West End, and that sort of put me in the West End. And then from that, I've depped on We Will Rock You. I've played on Mamma Mia, played on Grease. And then I did about 10 years on Thriller Live, which was the Michael Jackson.
Yeah, I saw that.
That was a
great
show, actually. That was a
I would
brilliant
have
show.
listened to you on it then.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And then what else have I done? So I did Thriller Live, Dancing in the Street, which is another show. And then after that, that sort of fell away really when I started running my own bands, because I became just so busy doing that. So I didn't do much work in the West End. When the pandemic happened and all my work stopped, and I became an Uber driver.
Wow.
Then I thought, well, I'm better phone some people to see if I can get some work. So it just so happened that two of the deps that depped for me on Fame the Musical, one was working in Thriller, one was working in Wicked, and one was working in Hamilton. So I just phoned them both up and said, do you need any deps? So now I dep for them on those shows.
Yeah, incredible.
And that's how I got back in. They're the only two shows I play on now, Wicked and Hamilton.
Yeah. Going back to Moody Blues then, with, you mentioning about the touring across America and every major arena and stadium, and how did you find that? There's this glorified dream that a lot of younger musicians will have about breaking into a tour and doing all this music live, and it's really an incredible experience, but it can be quite taxing as well. So how did you find touring life, gigging life over the years?
It's a great question. It's also a paradoxical answer, because on the one hand, I loved every single minute of it. On the flip side of the same coin, the amount of wedding anniversaries I missed, the amount of end-of-term plays of my daughters I missed, the amount of birthdays I missed were a heavy price to pay, indeed. Because
you're either in it or you're not, aren't you? Once you commit to it, so what'll happen is that you'll be on tour and you'll have there'll be something go. I remember there's one particular time I was staying at the Four Seasons in West Palm Beach, and we had a day off, glorious hotel, and I sort of wandered out in my shorts, and this is back in the 90s, before cell phones, before mobile phones, and I wandered, and it was a day. We'd done 9 shows on the trot, and I was exhausted. And I thought, I'm just going to go out and lie in the sun. So there was a bar in the pool. So I got in the pool and I swam out, and I sat on. I'm sitting in water. And the guy came. It was lunchtime. The guy said, "What would you like?" And Graham Edge, the original drummer of the Moody Blues, who was he invented sex, drugs, and rock and roll. He did. He came up. And he said, He got next to me. He said, "Let's have a pina colada." So I said, "Oh, I'll have a pina colada." So I got this pina colada, and then there was a phone at the bar, and the barman answered the phone and said, "Oh yes, I'll ask. Is Gordon Marshall here?" And I said, "Yes, it's me." I said, "It's your wife on the phone." So I took the phone, and she was in tears, because I think it was November, or it might have been February. It was in the winter anyway. There was a smog in London back then. I think I'd say it would have been 96. I know exactly the year, because Phoebe was about a year old. The boiler had broken down. She got no hot water, and she was having a dreadful time. And there I was, sat at a bar. Now, it's sort of funny in one way, because she's saying, "Where are you?" And I'm saying, "Well, I'm at the hotel." "Yeah, but where in the hotel? You're not in the room." "No, I'm out by the pool." She can hear all splashing in the background.
Oh, God. And it was, and that's when those situations, unavoidable and also just impossible to navigate. So the next time I spoke to her was the following day. She was really not happy with me, understandably. She's sort of holding the fort back at home, and there I was, out having pina coladas at lunchtime in a swimming pool. All joking apart. So the next day I get on the bus, and I've had this sort of very difficult conversation with my wife back in London. And I've got to get on the bus, and I've got to be part of the team, and I've got to be up, because you have to be. You can't be moping around on the tour bus. So to answer you, that's a long answer to the question, but it's both amazing and it's both the most difficult thing that you will ever do. So living the dream, which I was absolutely doing. We had a private jet for 10 years. It was just off the scale sort of opulence in some regard. But at the same time, you have to pay the price for living that. And sometimes the price is, it's up there.
So like I said before we started recording this episode, is that quite a few of our listeners are students, part of our partner schools. There will be some young people and some young drummers who are listening to this.
Who aren't married yet.
Who can sip pina coladas freely if you're above 18. Yeah. But some of them will be thinking, I would love to do that kind of thing. Is there any advice that you might be able to say, heed my warning, or anything that people should really be thinking about if that's what you're aiming for? If the dream is to be a touring musician, touring drummer, You know.
Well, I mean, again, that's a really good question. So that was an anecdote. So you're not aiming for pina coladas. What you're aiming for is a career in the music industry.
Yes, okay.
And that can take you a number of ways. And it's unlike any other industry or any other career. So, you know, if I was a doctor and somebody came to me and said, how do you become a doctor? I'd say, well, you get these A-levels, you go to this college, and you do this. With music, it's completely individual. So everybody has their own unique, bespoke route into the industry. And you almost have to create, these days, especially as you know this, you have to create your own industry, because the industry that was around when I started, which was, you know, in the last century before the old Queen died, is completely different to what it is now. It just doesn't exist. And each decade, it's shifted to the degree where the advice I would give any student is completely different. And it would be, say, in the 70s, I would advise, when I was a teenager, I was given advice which wasn't relevant in the 80s. And then when I moved down to London to be a musician, any advice I would have given to somebody in their teens was completely different to what I was advised to do. Move to the 90s, you're down to 5-year chunks, because then the parameters change every 5 years. It's every 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So you've now got the likes of Suno, and you've got people putting stuff up on YouTube, and you've got Instagram, and you can become a famous musician from your own YouTube channel. Yeah. When I moved to London, I got a deal. I was a very good friend of mine moved down with me, a guy called Peter Howarth, who's now the lead singer with the Hollies, another famous band. We moved down together when we had nothing, and we got a record deal. And that was the only way you could have a career in the music industry, because there were so many gatekeepers. You had to have an A&R guy. You had to be picked up. They gave you an advance. They put you in the studio. They put you on a retainer. They had an album recorded. And that was how you did it then. Now it's completely different. There is almost no advice I can give other than you need to have an undeniable passion for it, to the degree that any other option is not an option. You need to practice until your fingers bleed all the time, non-stop, every single day. You need to become as good as you possibly can, and you need to keep your ears close to the ground and try and work out what on earth is happening around you, and somehow navigate your way into whatever scene is happening, and just make yourself valuable within that scene.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Our last episode, we were talking to Shea McAllister, Shea Lilly, her artist name, about, because she's a younger musician. I'm not saying that you're an older one, but
it's a fair point. It's a fair call. I'm definitely older musician.
She's a younger musician, but just saying about what it's like in 2025 for someone in their early 20s and the different sort of pathways that we might need to be thinking about. And one of the things that is relevant for what you're saying as well is that no matter how good you are, you're saying practice till your fingers bleed. Very good advice.
That's just a prerequisite to get in the door. That doesn't guarantee the success.
But one of the things that I think that you need to really make sure that you're on top of as well is just being a nice person as well. Because if you're, you can be the best person in the world, but if you're a bit of a dickhead when you're talking to people, immediately people remember that within minutes of meeting you and think, they're really good, but they're going to cause us trouble down the line. So just making sure that you're approachable and that you can have nice conversations with people and make a nice impact on people is also something that's very important in this industry.
You need to be somebody that people want to hang out with.
Exactly that. I'll tell you what, we're going to take a very quick break. We're going to come back and we're going to be talking about Gordy Marshall, the author. Cliffhanger. See you in a minute.
Great.
Passionate about podcasts and sound? Dive into the Sculpt Mixing course. Developed over 2 years, this online course delivers top-tier mixing tips straight from our bustling commercial studio. With guided videos, downloadable audio content, and a comprehensive handbook, you'll elevate your skills at your own pace. Visit crownlanestudio.co.uk/education and enter podcast special at checkout for an exclusive 30% discount. At Crown Lane, we help you sound better. Download now and let's get back to the episode.
Welcome back, everybody. We're talking to Gordy Marshall. We've been talking about the amazing story. Well, the pina colada one's going to stick with me for a while, I think.
Just hope my wife doesn't watch this. I don't want to remind her of that scenario.
Yeah, PTSD listening to this one for her. As well as being a wonderful musician, you are also an author. So can you tell us a little bit? I can see upon your lap.
Yes, I have two books sitting on my lap.
There's some books here.
I'm about to flash them to the camera in a minute.
Good. Yes, very nice. Yeah. How did that begin? What made you want to do that? What made you think I need to put this down into text? Do you enjoy the process of writing? And tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, one of the benefits of being on the road when you're spending often 12 to 16 hours on a tour bus is that you can get through an inordinate amount of books. So, in fact, everybody in the Moody Blues, when I was everybody was a voracious reader, but there was books being handed around. Literally, everybody had a book on the go all the time, which was great, actually. So, I've always been a reader, and the way I started to write was that I put an online music course together back in the 2005, 2008, maybe, something like that. So when you get to my age, you don't think in terms of years, it's in terms of decades. So somewhere around that period. Yeah. And I had somebody design a website for me. And in order to drive traffic to the website, the designer said to me, why don't you try this new thing called a blog? Just write a daily blog about where you are and what you're doing. So I started to write this daily blog, and I called it Postcards from a Rock and Roll Tour. It's just like a daily postcard. That became much more successful than the drum lessons. No one was interested in the drum, the online drum lessons back then, particularly. And I started to get like loads of people, like lots of people reading this blog.
Yeah.
So then I just coincidentally met a literary agent in New York through a mutual friend. And I mentioned this to them, and they took a look at it, and they said, oh, this could be a book. So this literary agent got me a publishing deal on the basis of this blog. So I wrote a book in 2012 called Postcards from a Rock and Roll Tour. So it's about 70,000 words, which is about the size of an average novel. And that was released in 2012, and it went really well. It sold really well. That was my first attempt at writing a book, and I absolutely loved the process. I just love writing. I love reading. I love Bill Bryson. So he, the writer Bill Bryson. So I sort of used him as influence, if you will, because he's a travel writer. So that book came out in 2012, and then when the pandemic happened, and so the pandemic was quite dramatic for us. Thankfully, no one passed away. We were very lucky in that regard. But financially, it was absolutely massive. So by this point, I was no longer a hired musician with the Moody Blues. I was now a band leader, and I was doing the hiring. So we'd done a tour of America already, and we were going out to do a big 30-day tour. We'd hired venues, I'd booked flights, booked visas, and on my 60th birthday, which was March the 16th, was the day of the lockdown, and we were due to fly to America on the 20th. So we lost everything. We lost the thousands on the flights, all the money for the visas, all of the money that had been paid for deposits for the venues, all gone. So, that experience is traumatic, because it really was traumatic. I started Uber driving because I had nothing. I had no income at all. So I'd gone from touring the world on a private jet to being an Uber driver, which is, and I did it for maybe 4 years. I did it full time for a year. And then when I started to get gigs back, it was a couple of days Uber driving and some more dates. And now we're back touring fully. I don't Uber drive anymore. Yeah. However, having said that, the experience was so dramatic, and the lessons I learned from it, I found became invaluable. So I wrote a book called The Resilient Musician, Harnessing the Power of Resilience Through the Lens of Music. So
can we have a look?
We can, yeah. So when I revisited Postcards from a Rock and Roll Tour, I'd realised it had gone out of print, and although I technically still had my publishing deal, I decided to re-release it, or an anniversary edition of it. So that is the anniversary edition of Postcards from a Rock and Roll Tour. And I've added some chapters at the end because the original book was written in 2012. I've now finished it off and rounded it out. Sorry, I've just knocked the microphone.
That's right.
Rounded it out to explain how that chapter ended. So that book is now available on Amazon as a hardback, a paperback, Kindle, and an audiobook.
Blimey.
And then I wrote this book, which is called The Resilient Musician, Harnessing the Power of Resilience Through the Lens of Music. And this is sort of a self-help book, if you will. It's got all... each chapter split into two parts. One tells the story of what happened, of the crash, of the tour ending, and then the second part of the same chapter are the lessons learned from that experience and how I overcame it. And then it just talks the reader through the process of losing everything, and then what's required to stay mentally healthy to get everything back. Yeah. And this is where I would do a big push for this studio, because during that time, when I wasn't out doing gigs, I was able to come here and get a fantastic coffee and a sandwich. I was able to come and put myself in a room and practice for 6 hours. And have because it's such a wonderful vibe in the studio. I mean, everything from the quality of the mics to everything is top quality. I could come. This was like a safe haven for me. It was a safe space. I would come in here, and I still do, come in here and practice. So you guys get a mention in this book for that very reason. In fact, you're in the acknowledgements as well. So that's the reason for that book.
Yeah, amazing. And I believe that for this one as well, for Resilient Musician, there's an audiobook as well.
Yeah, there's, again, hardback, paperback, Kindle, an audiobook. In fact, this audiobook was recorded in that studio over there.
Was it really?
Yes, you know that.
I was going to ask if you found somewhere nice to record the audiobook of it, but I believe it was Crown Lane Studio.
It was Crown Lane Studios.
Great. And I love that sentiment that you're talking about in that book as well. And it's something that where you come in, every time that you come in to play drums, which we love it when you're here, but I normally distract you for about 25 minutes and we have a cup of tea and talk about exactly the sentiments you're talking about, and that about, the healing power of music, and, how, it's just so meaningful for all of us. And then eventually I think, I should probably let Gordy carry on with his drumming and then leave you be. But yeah, it's amazing. And Amazon was the place that we can get it, is it?
Yeah, if you just go to Amazon, if you're in the UK, it's amazon.co.uk. But I've seen a lot of people in America have bought it, and that's obviously amazon.com.
Great. Wonderful. Well, before we wrap things up, Gordy, there's something that needs to happen. We're going to do the Crown Lane questionnaire, which is something that everybody has. I'm presuming that you don't know what the Crown Lane questionnaire is and the questions.
I genuinely have no idea what you're going to ask me.
It's a short series of questions. Everyone gets the same questions.
Okay.
And we don't like any, oh, God, that's really hard. You just got to go for it.
So it's a cross-court running backhand volley, is it?
Exactly
right.
that.
Okay.
Exactly that. Gordy Marshall, are you ready for the questionnaire?
Yes.
Okay, question number 1.
No.
Okay, question number 2.
Okay.
No, question number 1. What is the best format of music for you to listen to? I mean, if you had to listen to a piece of music, do you prefer tape? Do you prefer
record player?
Vinyl.
Vinyl on my vinyl record.
Vinyl's it.
Yeah, old school.
Vinyl's the way that you prefer. Right, okay. Question 2. Do you prefer being a musician in the studio or live on stage?
Live on stage.
Nobody's ever said studio, Chris. Nobody's ever said it.
Do you know why? Because what's really interesting is that, very quickly. So so the other night we played Pizza Express. It's only 110 people. And
which one?
In Holborn.
Yeah, beautiful.
With my Go Now band.
Yeah, amazing.
And
that venue.
There's people literally having pizza. I mean, they could hand me a piece of pizza.
Yeah.
That's how close they were. Fantastic. I loved it. When I play in Hamilton in the West End, I'm in an orchestra pit. Everyone's got their head in their charts. And the music's a masterpiece, but in terms of feedback, there isn't any.
Yeah,
you get to the end of the show, you've been playing for 3 hours, and everybody says, "Oh, well done." You go, "Thanks."
Yeah.
So you've got one person saying "well done," or 110 people standing up and giving a standing ovation.
I've played that Pizza Express venue.
Great.
It's amazing. It's really, really beautiful. Okay.
Next question.
This is a tough question now. Got to go for it. Best gig that you've ever been to as an attendee?
Stevie Wonder.
When? We'll cut to
Songs
the decade.
in the Key of Life.
Yeah.
The last time my wife and I went to see him just recently at Hyde Park, but we went. So that's our album, because I was alive when that was actually 1977. That was the album that we both grew up with, and then when we went to see him live, it was emotional, to say the least.
Yeah, I bet. Okay, next question. This is a weird one. The best gig that you haven't been to, and I mean, is there a gig throughout history that you didn't attend but you think, I wish I could have been there for it?
Maybe Woodstock.
69?
Pardon? In 60, I was 9 years of age, so I wouldn't have been there. But I mean, that was the start of the 1960s musical revolution, effectively. That was the one you can hang your hat on.
Mitch Mitchell drum solo.
What? Sorry?
There was the Mitch Mitchell drum solo.
Absolutely, yeah. Yes, it was. Yeah.
That's very different to the answer that John gave. John was quoting a Beethoven kick that he went to.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah, I can't top that.
I think I probably would have preferred your one. Okay, favourite instrument to listen to, and I mean if it's being played in the same room.
Solo piano.
Okay, Grant?
Yeah, Lang Lang playing solo piano.
Okay. Oh, we've got an instrument, a musician to play as well, Lang Lang. Least favourite instrument to listen to?
Banjo. Whoops, that was my outside voice, wasn't it?
This is what we want, though, but I wasn't prepared for you to answer that quickly. And the last question, which is the best album to give to someone as a gift? Happy birthday. Imagine you giving physical music.
Oh, it depends. No, that's a tricky question because it depends who it is.
Okay. Imagine I said, I'm giving it to just anyone.
I would say any Stevie Wonder album. No, not any Stevie Wonder album. Because Stevie Wonder's my favourite artist of all time, or Earth, Wind and Fire. So I would take two options, maybe Earth, Wind and Fire Greatest Hits, or I would probably give Hotter Than July.
We listened to that in our vinyl club
Steely
recently.
Dan?
Yeah.
You see, the options are many.
Yeah. Okay.
It all depends on who you're giving it to. Sorry, Lawrence.
No,
I've messed that one up.
No, that's great. That's great. Well, that's the end of our Crown Name questionnaire. Thank you very much for taking it, Gordy. Faster than most in some of those answers. Banjo! Loved
That was
it.
an easy one.
Yeah.
That was my outside voice again, wasn't it?
Apologies to any aspiring banjo
Absolutely,
players.
yeah. It's a wonderful instrument.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Before we go then, any recommendations? I certainly have one, but I might go first if you don't mind, actually.
Yeah, you go ahead.
On that conversation where you said about the best format of music for you to listen to, vinyl, we now have vinyl night at Metronome, which is, if you don't know Metronome, it's our coffee shop and event space, wine bar, next door to the studio, and it's the first Friday of every month. We had our first one last month. It was absolutely beautiful. People, it's like the 70s. It's bring a record party. People come along and bring their own vinyl along, and then we play it on our sound system on a turntable. So if you are listening and you're nearby or you're not too far away from Morden, come on down on the first Friday of every month. Bring your vinyl. If you don't have any, I bring my whole collection down and you can flick through mine as if you're in a record shop.
Fantastic.
And then we play them all night. It's really, really good fun. Gordy, any music or any venues or anything that you can recommend to our listeners?
Yeah, there's a couple of music suggestions I've got. There's a band called Lawrence, spelt exactly like your name, or L-A-W. Lawrence,
Yes.
called Lawrence the Band. And I originally came across them when I was listening to an album called Jesse 4. Do you know Jacob Collier?
Yeah.
He would be the second recommendation. So Jacob Collier, if anybody doesn't know, is a London musician. He's possibly the closest thing to a modern-day Mozart that we've got. I first discovered him when he was 17, and he put a video out on YouTube of him singing a version of the Flintstones. Vocals only. Have you heard it?
I have heard it.
Yeah. So from that YouTube video, he was signed by Quincy Jones. Boom, straight away. Yeah. Although Jacob Collier refused. He didn't refuse. He just said, I don't want to be signed just yet. I want to see how it goes. So Quincy Jones became his manager about 2-3 years later. I absolutely love Jacob Collier, and I want to be Jacob Collier when I grow up. That's how much I admire the man. And I could pontificate. I could just chat about him for the next hour. However, on Jesse 4, there was a band on there featured on one song called Lawrence. And I found out that they were coming to play in London, and I went to see them. And they're from New York. Are they from New York? I think they're from New York. Brother and sister.
That's right.
Fantastic. One of the best live gigs. I went with my eldest daughter, Phoebe. One of the best live gigs I've seen in years and years and years. So Lawrence the band and Jacob Collier would be my two recommendations.
You're the second person to recommend Lawrence. The band, sadly, nobody recommends Lawrence the Crown Name.
I would happily recommend you, Lawrence.
I believe Chris in the room with us. But yeah, you're a big fan, aren't you, Chris? Could you see him nodding away in the corner of the room? Amazing. Brilliant. Well, thank you very, very much, Gordy, for coming along.
My pleasure.
Thinks for being on the record.
Thank you very much.
And we'll be listening to your wonderful drums in the studio very soon, I'm sure.
Right. I'm thinking might be booked in next week. If I'm not, I will be doing soon.
Should we give it to a freebie? I think.
Oh,
yeah.
go on.
Is that nice? Yeah.
Thank you very much.
It's on the record. It's on the record. Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Gordy. Thank you very much, everybody, to listen. Have a lovely August, and we'll catch you again in September. Take care, everybody. Goodbye.
Thank you.